So, my dear friends, today's topic, the temporal and eternal mind, it's an intriguing one because we all know we have one mind through which we have operated all our lives. So, what is this second mind I'm referring to? Let us start by exploring our beautiful human makeup and then look at how we have been operating with more than one operating system all our lives. We've just not been aware of it. If we take the classic body-mind-spirit approach, which we are all familiar with, we all know the role of the body and the mind, so we don't need to discuss it further. We know the spirit as being the source of our life energy, and we know that we are alive because of this spirit. And that is our basic understanding, which is correct. Now, what if we could engage with the intelligence of the spirit? Would it be like having a second mind? Let us explore this possibility today. The mind that we all know is our temporal mind, which is our greatest tool, our greatest strength, and our greatest weakness as we navigate through life in this material world, this complex material world. And as the name implies, our temporal mind is limited to time, space, and matter. And in the material world, it enables us to perceive everything through physical, mental, and emotional experiences as if they were real. So, for example, you see a table and you touch it. You know it's there because your mind tells you it's there. You see a loved one that you can touch and feel. You know that he or she is there because you can not only touch the person, you can also feel him or her. So when events transpire in your life, you feel their emotions in simple and sometimes very complex ways through your emotional body, which is also a part of the temporal mind. Therefore, our entire experience of life in this material world is based on our temporal mind. Everything we know as our reality exists because of our temporal mind, and we can all agree on that. Then a day comes when we have to leave this world physically and go back to our real home. The light switch is flicked off and everything shuts down. Our temporal mind also shuts down completely. So in this context, we cease to exist the way we knew before the switch was turned off. This makes the temporal mind temporary and limited to time, space, and matter of this material world. So what happens next? I've invited our favorite angel friends, Cyrus and Luminous, who we haven't spoken with in a while, to help us address this question and more based on their infinite wisdom. I asked Cyrus, when we die in this physical material world, do we actually cease to exist? Does everything just go dark and then ball game over, like we never existed? Or is there more? And Cyrus smiled and replied, of course there is more. A lot more. Or else none of this whole of creation would make any sense. It's not just stop and start. There is an eternal continuity. He said, you never cease to exist upon death in the material world. You continue to exist like you always have at another level, which is your real and eternal existence. During your life in the material world, you have constantly existed at both these levels, the temporal level, which you explained earlier, and the eternal level, which is constant, timeless, and ever-living. Constant, timeless, and ever-living. Now, you can think of them as two operating systems, Cyrus says, each serving a very important function. You can think of the eternal operating system as the second mind, for simplicity's sake. So when you physically die, your second mind, the eternal mind, remains ever present, and you continue with it on your journey of growth and spiritual evolution, because it's always been there. It was there before you were born in this world, it has been with you throughout this life, and it continues to be forever. Therefore, at death, you never lose awareness, because you, by definition, Cyrus says, are eternal awareness, each one of you. So what you leave behind is the temporary tools you had used to facilitate your journey in this material world. When man went to the moon, Cyrus says, he wore a spacesuit, which was his tool to survive while he was there. When he returned to Earth, the spacesuit came off because it no longer served any purpose. But the astronaut continued to exist. So in the material world, you can think of your body and your temporal mind as your spacesuit, and you are the astronaut that never ceases to exist. Therefore, you don't stop to exist just because you're done with your tools, Cyrus says. You continue with the second mind, so to speak. The one that enshrines your real self, that has been and will continue to be eternally. Cyrus said, so for the purpose of our discussion, today we shall refer to the second mind as the eternal mind. This eternal mind is actually, in inverted commas, a complete awareness of your real self. And he said, Luminous, and I have news for you. You are going to be forever, each one of you. Isn't that an exciting thought? You can never die, even if you wanted to, because you are. You just are, now and eternally. Now, note the word I used when talking about the eternal mind. Cyrus said, I use the word awareness because this word is closest to the real description of the eternal mind. It is awareness. It is eternal awareness. I asked Cyrus, can Luminous and you help us understand the two minds a bit better and how we can tell the difference between them? Luminous said, you've explained the three levels of the temporal mind on many occasions. How about a brief recap for us all today? So I go, well, based on my understanding, the temporal mind has three levels. You have the lower level mind, which is your basic mind that carries out or makes decisions for your basic survival requirements. I'm hungry, mind says go to the fridge, get something to eat. I go to the fridge, I get something to eat. Hunger satisfied, chapter closed. That's the low level mind. Then comes the higher level mind, which is where we all make broader based decisions, wider decisions with so many more inputs. And the higher level mind draws on memory, it draws on everything, our experience, wisdom, and all. But it addresses decisions like where should we live? Where should my children go to school? How can I build my career? Everything that has broad dimensions comes from the higher level mind. And then the third level is the intellect. So the higher level mind borders the intellect. And the intellect is the most enlightened level of the mind because it connects us to our source, to our higher self, to our eternal self. So the intellect is a very, very key facet of our temporal mind because it borders the temporal and the eternal. Now, Luminous says that was a good encapsulation. Now, in contrast, he says, to the temporal mind, the eternal mind has no levels. Temporal mind has three levels. Eternal mind has no levels. It is also beyond the human intellect, way beyond. It is your true awareness, Luminous says. And he says, in this world, You live through a cycle. That's what you do in this world. And he looked towards me and he says, this is something you've described many times before in different contexts, but perhaps a quick recap, will help me explain the eternal mind better. And my dear friends, we have discussed the cycle of life in many webinars before in varying contexts. And you all remember it from my first book, which is the origin is light, light brings life, life brings experience, experience brings knowledge, and knowledge is light. So the origin is light is we come from the light. Our life energy comes from the light. So that brings us life. And life brings us experience in this material world. And this experience, when we reflect on it and learn from it, becomes knowledge. And that knowledge is light. So that's the full cycle of our lives. And every morning we get up, we meet people, we have so many encounters, so many experiences. We are gaining experience. Then, when the time comes when we can sit in quiet contemplation, we reflect on these experiences. What lessons did they bring us? And what we learn becomes knowledge, and that knowledge is light, and we'll talk more about it today. So I asked Luminous, so where does the eternal mind fit into this picture of origin is light, light brings life, life brings experience, experience brings knowledge, knowledge is light. Where does the eternal mind fit in this picture? And Luminous replies, it fits towards the end of the cycle, when knowledge becomes light. When knowledge becomes light, it becomes enjoined with your eternal mind. I added on this point, it is also important for us to understand the word knowledge. What does knowledge mean? Because it's such a broad concept. In the temporal world, knowledge is understood in so many ways. Now, I'll share 3 segments of knowledge from the published literature. The first one is knowledge as information. Here, knowledge is described as encompassing facts, data, and observations gathered through study, experience, or instruction. So, knowledge as information. That's one segment. The second segment is knowledge as understanding. In this context, knowledge encompasses the ability to interpret information, seeing patterns, relationships, and meanings behind what is learned. So that all becomes understanding. And the third one is knowledge as a skill or competence. Now here knowledge embodies the practical capacity to apply what we know to real life situations, to act, to solve problems, and create results. So those are the 3 material level segments of knowledge, and there's so many more. But these are 3 principal ones. Next, if we look at the published literature on knowledge from a spiritual perspective, we find 3 more segments. There's a lot more than 3, but I picked out these 3. We have knowledge as an inner awareness. In this context, knowledge is the silent, intuitive knowing that arises from within. It's that intuitive knowing that arises from within, beyond thought, logic, or external proof. So that is a spiritual dimension of knowledge. And as you can see here, it's now taking on a more abstract dimension. The next one is knowledge as self-realization. Here, knowledge represents an understanding of the true nature of the self and its relationship to existence, beyond the body, beyond the mind, and the ego. And finally, at a philosophical level, the third one is knowledge as wisdom. And here, knowledge refers to the ability to discern what is true, meaningful, and aligned with higher purpose. It is applying understanding with compassion, clarity, and humility. So, all 3 spiritual and philosophical segments go deeper into the abstract. And these diverse descriptions of knowledge show us how broad our understanding can be. So we have to get this clear in our minds as we move forward. So I asked Luminous, when we talk of knowledge being light, what does that really mean? Does it embody some of the descriptions we have just covered? And he replies, yes, indeed it does, but beyond that. He says the reality of knowledge being light goes much further. And let us take a closer look. When you experience the material world, these experiences are tied to your emotions and your state of being that the temporal mind shows you. So these are your experiences. Then when you sit in deeper contemplation and you think of your experiences with the goal of seeking the true lessons that they carry, this process takes you to the highest level of your temporal mind, which is the intellect, which is the home of inspiration and enlightened thought. So this deep contemplation on all your experiences is how you go to the highest level, derive their lessons, and that's how you gain knowledge. And he says, now you are processing your experiences at this enlightened level, seeking their true meaning and purpose. Remember, he says, you are here in this world to experience and gain knowledge. And each one of you has come here to learn different things and acquire enlightened knowledge about them. So let us look at the journey of a soul, he says, we call Maya. Let us learn through her journey. Before birth into this material world, Maya has chosen to learn to achieve absolute love. That is her soul's purpose during this lifetime, to achieve absolute love. Hence, her life path is shaped accordingly, and her karmic compass is pointed towards experiences that she will receive that will help lead her towards discovering absolute love. Now, we have done 3 webinars on karma a few years back, but that's where I've covered karmic compass and a lot more. When you have time, take a moment and view those 3 webinars. So here, Maya's journey now, because her karmic compass has presented her the opportunities to learn and grow and gain that knowledge, Maya's journey is filled with encounters of love in so many dimensions, from blissful to painful. But she lives through them fully. And when Maya reflects on each experience from her highest level, her intellect, what happens? These reflections awaken her to what her soul has sought to achieve. So it's a continuity. These reflections become a continuity of what she had sought to achieve before she manifested at birth. So she's already gone to that highest stage. These reflections take her directly to the soul stage, which is pure light and intelligence. And when she derives knowledge from such intellectual reflection, Luminous says that knowledge embodies light because it is engaged with her soul. So this knowledge, which is light, becomes enjoined with her eternal awareness, i.e. her eternal mind. So there are 3 steps, he says. The temporal mind experiences. Next, the intellect enlightens the thoughts of the lessons derived from the experiences. And finally, this creates knowledge that embodies light. And hence Maya grows in knowledge and light, and she becomes more and more complete at each stage until her purpose is fulfilled. And then she dies in the material plane. She drops all her temporal tools and remains as eternal awareness forever, having fully acquired the essence of absolute love. So, in that context, we all get up in the morning, we are full of experiences, and how many of us actually sit down and reflect and contemplate our experiences and take them all the way to soul stage? If you do, fantastic. That means you're growing leaps and bounds spiritually. If you don't, or you do it sometimes, do it more often. And if you don't at all, great time to start. So in the context of Maya's experience of absolute love, I added in this conversation that in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna beautifully explains, and I paraphrase, that when the body dies, the soul departs effortlessly and invisibly as a scent carried by the wind. As a scent carried by the wind. So subtle. Just as fragrance leaves a flower and moves on without struggle. He said, consciousness too slips away from the body and continues its journey, carrying with it only the subtle impressions of its experiences. Carrying with it only the subtle impressions of its experiences. Osiris said, this is so beautifully expressed. Note the word subtle impressions. The soul does not carry the experiences. It only carries the subtle impressions, which are indeed the eternal awareness. And he continued, now let us refine our understanding of the eternal awareness a bit further. Because it is very different to your material awareness. And how, you may ask? So Osiris says, in the temporal world, each one of you lives your life story. That's what you are all really doing here, living a story, from which you draw gems and pearls of knowledge that become light. So your life in the material world is nothing more than a story. He said the eternal awareness does not work the same way. He said there is no story or event or experience that the eternal awareness participates in and remembers like what happens in the temporal mind. It is totally different. All the eternal mind embodies is complete awareness, which is knowledge that is light. Now let us look at a simple analogy to help us understand what this is. So Cyrus says, let's say you are baking a cake. In the temporal world, you have a recipe that you follow. You add the flour, you add the sugar, you add all the goodies, and you produce the cake. And that entire baking process, including the challenges you faced, become part of the story of the cake. He said, then you taste the cake and go, wow, this is heavenly. The taste touches you deeply, making you sigh from satisfaction. He said the taste or essence of the cake is what the eternal awareness embodies, not the story of the cake, the essence of the cake. So it's not the story of the cake. And all the experiences you went through while making it do not become part of the eternal awareness. That's the story. But the taste, which is its essence, that's what remains. So can you see the subtle difference between the two, he says. And then you go back to Sri Krishna's saying about the subtle impressions. That's what we're talking about, the subtle impressions, not the experiences. So if you engage with the eternal mind and try to treat it like the storybook of the temporal mind, Cyrus says you will get nowhere because there are no stories there. If you think you can tap into your eternal mind and revisit all the stories and experiences of your past lives, you won't find any of those stories. You will simply discover the subtle impressions or essence, like the Gita says, that were derived from those stories. And all these subtle impressions are far more powerful and fulfilling than the stories from which they were derived. So you see the difference between the two now. Lumina said that, so now we have gained a very basic understanding of the temporal and eternal minds and how they are different. One being a timeless awareness and the other a temporary storybook that will close when your time is up. So I asked Cyrus, if the eternal mind harbors essence only, and not the stories, how does it engage with the temporal mind? We would all want to know. What does the eternal mind do for us while we are alive in this world? A lot, Cyrus replied. He said the eternal mind fertilizes the temporal mind with essence. It adds essence to your thoughts if you consciously seek this essence. If you don't seek essence in your life, you will miss a lot. It is like having been to a buffet with all your favorite foods that you simply walk past without noticing, without even knowing it was there. So living with essence is key. And Cyrus looked at me and said, you have a nice story in your second book, Parables from the Origin, about this artist. Can you relate it to us? Because that really drives the point home. Sure, I said. So in this story, there was a very famous artist by the name of Michael. And his work was revered throughout the world. He was very famous. But he was also a private person. He had a log cabin in the forest, which he used to visit frequently to find inspiration and to get away from the chaos and noise of the city. One morning, just before daybreak, Michael is woken up by a gracious white dove sitting on the window ledge with a gentle glow around its face. This is not a normal bird, Michael thought to himself. The dove looked directly into his soul and said, Michael, I am here to share something with you. Michael was bewildered by this eloquent, white, glowing dove. What is it you wish to share with me? He asked. The dove replied, I have watched over you for such a long time. I have viewed every one of your works with much admiration. But now I notice that the more perfect your art gets, the greater the void you see in it. The more perfect your art gets, the greater the void you see in it. This void, the dove says, is actually impacting you at the core. Would you like to know why this void exists and what you are supposed to decipher from it? So Michael felt at total ease with this angelic bird, and he said, sure, I would love to know why. And so the dove says, when you paint something, and you are a master at landscapes, you look at a landscape and then you reproduce it exactly the way you see it. But the dove said, that painting is beautiful, but it has no essence. The dove says, if you can put essence in your painting, you will find great fulfillment in your work and you will produce master works of art that the world has yet to see. So Michael says, well, how can I put essence in my painting? So the dove says, okay, imagine you are looking at a tree, and what you instinctively do is you just paint what you see. So you're painting what is coming to you. That's just a copy. The dove says, having seen or looked at the tree, now you close your eyes and create that tree from within yourself. Create that tree from within yourself, and whatever you see and what you create, project it out towards the tree. And where the two meet, paint what you see. And the dove said, that painting of the tree will have essence because you created it from within and you projected it out. You didn't just copy something. Now you have created complete art. And so the dove says, you must know the difference between essence and form. You are a master at copying the form. Now put essence in it, create it from within, and paint that, and you will become the greatest artist this world has ever seen. And you will no longer feel this void that is absolutely biting at you. So Michael had learned about essence and form from this radiant white bird. So Cyrus says, you can all bring essence into everything you do and create by consciously engaging with your eternal mind. When you go in and you create something from within, from that deep level, you're engaging with your eternal mind. And so this is one very important role that the eternal mind plays in your daily life, Cyrus says. And there are more. He says, in addition to bringing essence into your conscious temporal state, the eternal mind also influences your being in several other ways. For example, the deep inner peace that you sometimes experience in its purest form comes from the eternal mind. It doesn't come from a temporal space. Why? Because the temporal mind is filled with human and animal dimensions of conflict, ego, greed, and all the positive and all the negative human attributes that exist within you. Hence, such deep and profound feelings of peace or love cannot emerge from its shallow and chaotic level. It has to come from another level. And therefore, Cyrus says, the eternal mind graces the temporal mind with pure energies of peace, love, compassion, generosity, and all the core qualities of the human spirit that you were born with. Your eternal awareness was all that you had at birth. The temporal followed and the storybook unfolded. Now we have a very good video on our YouTube channel on revival of the human spirit, where we even have a meditation on bringing that forth, because if we revive our human spirit and bring its essence and bring its core back into our material existence, we can change this world completely. And so please do look at that, view that video. And when we did the shift meditation in Turkey, that was the theme, revival of the human spirit. Then Cyrus says, next he said, the eternal mind embodies light. Because remember, knowledge is light. It embodies light. So he says, if you're walking in a dark forest and only have a torch, how far can you see? How far can you get? How safe can you be in this forest? But if along with the torch you have access to light that illuminates the entire forest, how would your journey look now? The point is, you have both lights present in your being, but so far you've only used the torch. Now it is time to access the other boundless capacity that you have. That was quite a profound explanation of the eternal mind, I said to Cyrus and Luminous. But tell us, how can we practically learn to engage with our eternal mind? Show us how. He replied, through a process of mind shift in the temporal mind. Mind shift in the temporal mind that allows you to sift past the chaos and reach clarity. It may sound difficult, but it is not. You have to start with baby steps. First, take the time to contemplate everything you have learned today about the eternal mind, because this is something new. Take the time to contemplate everything you've learned. Next, accept and recognize that it is your ever-present and ever-living awareness. Your eternal mind is your ever-present and ever-living awareness, and that is with you all the time, 24/7. He said, so when you now understand that, through contemplation, through reflection, through affirmation, when you now understand that, you will now refer to I as the eternal awareness and not I, the character in the storybook of your life that will close one day. Now when you think of I, you are referring to you as the eternal awareness. When you start doing that, you positioned yourself, your consciousness at that level. So he said, this is the first mind shift. This is the first mind shift set: acceptance, recognition, and correct assumption of the place of your eternal mind that it should have in your being. It shouldn't be something that you never knew about, because now you do. It shouldn't be something that you just ignore and just move on bumbling about like we all have up to today. It should be the core, the center of your conscious reality. And if you accept that, recognize it, and you place it in its correct position in your being, your eternal mind will now be working with you and your conscious mind. He said, next, take a few moments of quiet contemplation and speak with your eternal mind. Speak with your eternal mind through thought. Express your desire for understanding and experiencing its timeless awareness. If you don't ask, how are you going to know? So express your desire for experiencing its timeless awareness, because that's what you are. And Cyrus said, and you should focus on questions like, what is my eternal awareness? And in your contemplation, you pose that question, what is my eternal awareness? What is my essence? These questions, he said, you ask your eternal mind, and it will begin to give you glimpses in your life going forward. And I've also found in my life's journey, whenever I have read something like I've shared with you, the parable of light, which I'm not going to today, but it's on the video, on the YouTube channel. But I heard this parable of light from the scriptures, and I could not find any interpretation that gave me the peace and that quenching of my thirst, because it's such a powerful parable. So for 18 years, I contemplated that parable. Just like what Cyrus is saying, is contemplate these things. And one day, without even thinking about it, I saw its entire meaning, which satisfied what I was looking for as a scientist, because it appealed to my sense of logic, and it made my understanding of that parable of light whole. So when you're sitting and you're trying to engage with your timeless awareness, focus on, what is my eternal awareness? Ask the question, you already started the ball rolling. What is my essence? The ball is rolling. And come back to it. Don't just ask today and forget tomorrow. Keep coming back to the question. And it will start giving you glimpses in your life going forward in all different forms, through events, through what people say, through what you see, and sometimes through what you're inspired with from within. So that's the way to engage with the eternal mind, and with those baby steps that Cyrus has shared with us. He said it will start showing you, if you do this, it will start showing you essence in the things that appear ordinary. So it will open up a broader reality in you that sees the extraordinary in the ordinary, because essence is extraordinary. So this is a process of personal transformation through these baby steps. Next, he says, when you wish to create something, practice consciously what the radiant dove taught the artist Michael. Create your creation from within your being and project it outwards to whatever material manifestation you wish it to have. So create your creation from within your being and project it outward to whatever material manifestation you wish it to have. Michael's manifestation was art. Yours could be science, could be teaching, it could be communication, medicine, and more. Start tapping into your essence through the eternal mind and project it into the material plane. Cyrus says this is a very important process of making your eternal mind part of your conscious awareness. So he said, so that whatever your temporal mind now experiences is rich with essence. No more empty voids. Okay? So this is how the mind shift can develop, he says, step by step. if you put in the effort and the consciousness. Luminous stepped in and said, and then there is prayer and meditation, which are also ways of engaging with the eternal mind. He said, when you sit in prayer, rather than chanting empty words, focus on the essence of the words. And the thoughts you are going to express, focus on the essence of the thoughts that you are putting forward in your prayer. That will take your prayer to a new level, he says. There are practical techniques you can learn on prayer and meditation that can help take you deep into your eternal awareness, i.e., your ever-living state of being. And he says, we shall now leave you and let you learn some of these techniques that create unison between the eternal and temporal minds. So I thank Cyrus and Luminous for their precious words of wisdom and for simplifying what can seem as highly complex concepts. So my dear friends, let us spend a few minutes today practicing a meditative technique that helps take us to the eternal mind level. Let's make the start today. And this technique can also help in focused meditation and focused prayer as well, if you wish to use it. Follow the baby step and practice this meditation. And as you practice, you will then be able to engage with that higher state of being on demand, consciously. Even in the middle of your busy day, you'll think about it and you're there. But it'll take work, it'll take discipline, it'll take commitment. But I'd like to thank you all for being here today, for bringing your light, your energy, your blessing to today's webinar. And I pray that the light of our Creator may always be with you, to help you, guide you, protect you, and love you always. Stay blessed.